Company, right now, someone watching this is ready to give up. Maybe it's your business, your dream, your relationship, or maybe it's your life. You've tried, you've fought, company, and nothing seems to work. But what if I told you that the very moment you're about to quit is the exact moment you're closest to the breakthrough you've been waiting for? Today, we're gonna solve the greatest problem of all. How do you keep going when every part of you screams to stop? You know, every single one of us, every human being walking this planet, company, at some point hits a wall. That wall is what I call the threshold of pain. It's the place where you've tried and you've tried, company, and you've tried and it feels like nothing is working. It's the moment where you're sitting in your car alone, wondering if all this effort is ever going to mean anything, company. It's the night you stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m. asking yourself, why am I even doing this? And here's what most people don't realize. But at that exact moment, the one where you feel completely drained, where you feel like you've got nothing left, that is the moment where transformation begins. But most people never get there, company, because the second it hurts, the second it feels impossible, they quit. They let pain tell them the story of their life. But pain was never meant to be the end of your story. Company, pain is the beginning. Pain is feedback. Pain is life saying, you're on the edge of something bigger than you can see. Think about it for a second, company. When was the last time you grew in your life, really grew? Was it when everything was easy, when everything was comfortable? No, you grew when it was hard. You grew when you were tested. Company, you grew when you felt like you couldn't go on, but you took one more step anyway. And I want you to hear me on this. Your threshold of pain, that breaking point you're afraid of, company, it's not a wall, it's a doorway, it's the entrance into the next level of your life. But the only way you ever get there is by leaning into it, not running from it. See, company, most people think if I'm in pain, something must be wrong. No, if you're in pain, something is happening, something is shifting, something is moving inside of you. Company, your brain is rewiring, your heart is recalibrating, your spirit is saying you're ready for more, and yet because it feels uncomfortable, because it hurts, company, because it's not instant gratification, people pull back. But let me tell you something, you don't break in those moments, you're being broken open. There's a huge difference. Breaking means you're done, being broken open means life is making room for the version of you that you haven't met yet. Imagine this a seed planted in the soil, company. If you were to watch it underground, what would you see? You'd see darkness, you'd see pressure, you'd see the seed splitting apart. You might even think, company, it's being destroyed, but that's not destruction, that's transformation. That seed has to crack open, it has to break before life can emerge from it, and you're the same way, company. When you're in your darkest season, when everything feels like pressure, when you feel like you're cracking, that's not the end of you. That's the beginning of you. That's the point where life is saying it's time to grow, but most people don't push through that stage. They give up. They walk away. They say, this is too much, company, this isn't worth it, and they never see what was on the other side. I've met people who were one decision away from their breakthrough, one phone call, one more week of persistence, company, one more step forward, but they quit. They gave up at the threshold of pain, and you know what happens. They spend the rest of their life haunted by the question, company, what if I had kept going? Don't let that be your story. Now listen, I'm not here to sugarcoat it. Pain hurts. Struggle is real. Company, I'm not going to stand here and tell you it's easy to push through when you feel like you've got nothing left. But what I am telling you is this pain is temporary, and what comes out of it is permanent. The strength you build, the wisdom you gain, the person you become. Those things never leave you, company. And here's what's wild, when you look back later, when you reflect on the hardest times of your life, you'll realize those were the times that shaped you the most. Company, you won't remember the easy days, you won't remember the comfort, you'll remember the fight, you'll remember the fire, you'll remember the moment you wanted to quit, company, but you didn't. Let me ask you something, what's the story you want to tell years from now? Do you want to look back and say, I almost made it, but I stopped when it hurt? Company, or do you want to look back and say, that was the hardest season of my life, but it made me who I am today? Because the truth is, the threshold of pain is where character is built. Company, it's where identity is forged. It's where you discover what you're really made of. When you stand at that threshold, your mind will scream at you, stop, turn back, this is too much. But your heart knows better. Your heart knows that on the other side of pain is power. On the other side of struggle is strength. On the other side of pressure is purpose. The people you admire most, the legends, the leaders, the icons, they all stood where you are right now. They all reached their breaking point, company. And the only difference between them and everyone else is that they didn't stop there. They pushed through. They leaned into the pain. They used it. So the next time you're at that threshold, I want you to pause. I want you to breathe. And I want you to say to yourself, this is not the end. This is the beginning. company. This is where I'm being shaped into the person I was born to be. And then take one more step. Just one. That's how you win. Not by running away from pain, but by standing in it, company, breathing through it, and realizing that you are stronger than anything that's trying to break you. Because at the end of the day, company, the threshold of pain is not your enemy, it's your greatest ally. It's the place where the old you dies and the new you is born. And if you have the courage to stay there, is company, to push through it, you will discover a strength inside of you that you didn't even know existed. You know what separates people who just survive from the people who thrive? Company, it's not that they never experienced pain. It's not that life never knocked them down. It's not that they had some lucky break or some easy road. Company, what separates them is how they chose to respond to the pain. Most people see pain as punishment. They think, why is this happening to me? Why can't life just be fair? Company, why does everything always go wrong for me? And when you live with that belief, pain will crush you, it will bury you, it will convince you that you're a victim. Company, and when you start seeing yourself as a victim, you start giving away all your power. But champions leaders, the people who shift history, they see pain differently. Company, they understand something most people never realize: pain is preparation. Pain is the universe's way of saying, I'm strengthening you, I'm forging you. Company, I'm building you into someone who can carry a greater destiny. Let me give you an example. Think about the gym. If you've ever worked out, company, you know the only way you build muscle is by creating resistance. You've got to lift something heavy, you've got to push yourself past the point of comfort. Company, you've got to tear those muscle fibers a little bit so they can rebuild stronger. And what happens if you never challenge the muscle? It never grows. Life works the same way. Company, the challenges, the setbacks, the rejections, they are the resistance. They're the weight you're lifting. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Company. But that pain is what makes you stronger. That pain is what expands your capacity. That pain is what transforms you from who you are into who you're meant to become. The people who live the most extraordinary lives are not the ones who have had the easiest lives. They are the ones who took the hardest moments and said, this is fuel. This is energy. This is the fire that will drive me. You see, pain is neutral. Pain doesn't come with a label. It doesn't say, company, I'm here to destroy you, or I'm here to build you. That's your choice. You give pain its meaning. Two people can go through the exact same tragedy. Company, one uses it as an excuse to give up on life. The other uses it as the reason to rise. Same pain, different meaning, completely different destiny. Company. And I know some of you are sitting here right now thinking, but Tony, you don't know my story. You don't know how bad it's been. Company. You don't know what I've been through. And you're right, I don't. But what I do know is this, company. I've worked with people who have lost everything. People who've lost their health, their families, their freedom. And I've seen them rise again because they decided, I will not let my pain destroy me. I will let my pain empower me. You've got to shift your perspective, company. You've got to stop seeing your pain as the enemy and start seeing it as the teacher. Because pain will teach you things comfort never will. Pain will reveal your weaknesses, company, and it will demand that you strengthen them. Pain will expose your fears and it will force you to face them. Pain will uncover your excuses and it will dare you to let them go. Company. And here's the thing, when you learn how to use your pain, when you learn how to turn it into power, nothing can stop you. Because every time life throws something at you, company, instead of saying, this is the end, you say, this is fuel, this is the very thing that's going to make me unstoppable. Think about the stories we love, the heroes we admire. Company, every single one of them has been through pain. Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison. Oprah told she wasn't good enough for television. Company, Steve Jobs fired from the very company he built. If those people had looked at pain as punishment, they would have quit. They would have disappeared. Company, but they chose to see it as preparation. They chose to see it as the very thing that would elevate them to greatness. And I'm telling you right now, you've got that same choice. Company, you can look at your pain and say, this broke me. Or you can look at your pain and say, this built me. You can use it as the reason you stop, company, or you can use it as the reason you go harder. Listen, pain is energy, and energy doesn't disappear, it has to be directed. So if you suppress it, if you bury it, company, it's gonna come out as depression, as anger, as resentment. But if you harness it, if you channel it, that same energy becomes determination, hunger, drive, company. The same pain that could have destroyed you becomes the very fuel that launches you forward. When you're in pain, you've got to ask yourself better questions. Instead of why me, ask, what is this teaching me? What strength is this building in me? Company, how can I use this to become more? Because the quality of your questions will always determine the quality of your life, company. And I'll tell you something else. People who know how to use their pain don't just transform their own lives. They transform the lives of everyone around them. Because when you take your story, when you take your scars, when you take the things that once made you cry, and you use them to lift someone else, to inspire someone else, company, to remind someone else that they can make it too, that's when your pain becomes power in the purest form. Think about it, company. The most powerful voices in this world are not the ones who have never suffered. They are the ones who suffered deeply and refused to let it go to waste. Company. They are the ones who stood on their scars and said, if I made it through this, so can you. So right now, if you're hurting, if you're struggling, company, if you're in the middle of something that feels unbearable, I want you to remember this: you are holding the raw material of your greatness. The fire you're walking through right now is forging you. The weight on your shoulders is shaping you. The tears you're crying are watering the seeds of your future. Company, don't waste your pain, don't run from it, don't numb it, lean into it, learn from it, let it shape you. Because if you're willing to stop seeing it as punishment and start seeing it as preparation, company, you will discover that the very thing that tried to break you, it was actually the thing that was building you into someone unstoppable. Company, there's a moment in every journey when you can't see the results yet. You've been working, you've been pushing, you've been showing up, company, and still, it feels like nothing's happening. And that, my friends, is where most people quit. Not because they weren't capable, not because they weren't talented, company, not because their dream was impossible. They quit because they lost faith in the dark. See, faith is not needed when things are easy. Faith isn't necessary when the path is clear. When the money's flowing, when everyone around you is cheering you on. Faith is built for the seasons when nothing makes sense. Faith is built for the nights when you're alone, company, when your friends don't believe in you anymore. When the world has shut its doors and your mind is whispering, company, maybe it's time to give up. And this is where I want you to really listen. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't often comes down to this, company. The ability to believe when there is no evidence. The ability to hold on when all you want to do is let go. The ability to say, I can't see it yet, company, but I know it's coming, because faith is the ultimate muscle, and like every muscle, it only grows when it's tested. Think about it. Company, you don't build strength by lifting something easy, you build it by lifting something heavy. In the same way, you don't build faith when life is comfortable. Company, you build faith when life tests you, when you're walking through uncertainty, when you're surrounded by doubt. That's when you discover how strong your faith really is. Company, and here's the truth. Sometimes faith is the only thing you've got. You may not have the money, you may not have the connections, you may not have the experience, company, but if you've got faith, if you can look at nothing and still see something, if you can look at the darkness and still imagine the light, company, then you've got everything you need to keep moving forward. The challenge is most of us want guarantees. We want certainty. We want to know for sure that if we put in the work, if we take the risk, if we go all in, it's going to pay off. But life doesn't work like that. Life doesn't hand you certainty on the front end. Life demands faith first. And only after you prove you're willing to keep going in the dark does life begin to reveal the rewards. Think about every story of triumph you've ever heard. The entrepreneur who went broke 3 times before he finally built his empire. The athlete who kept training even when no one believed in them. The single parent who worked 3 jobs to provide for their kids. What do all those stories have in common? They all had to keep going when there was no applause, no recognition, no guarantee. They had to walk by faith, not by sight. And that's why their victory means something. Because if success were instant, if every dream were guaranteed, company, it wouldn't require courage, it wouldn't require resilience, and it wouldn't require faith. It would be meaningless. The reason victory feels so good, company, the reason achievement is so fulfilling is because of the faith it took to get there. But here's what I want you to remember. Faith isn't just some mystical concept. It's a decision, company. It's a choice you make moment by moment to trust in the process even when you can't see the outcome. Faith is looking at your current circumstances and saying, company, this is not the end of my story. Faith is deciding that setbacks are not signals to stop. They are simply setups for the next chapter of your journey, company. And I'll tell you something powerful, when you cultivate faith, you start to see differently. Where most people see obstacles, you see opportunities. Where most people see failure, you see feedback. Where most people see an ending, you see a beginning. That's the power of faith. It changes the lens through which you view the world. But I know what you're thinking. Tony, what about when it feels impossible? What about when I've tried and failed 100 times? Company, what about when I can't see any way forward? And that's exactly when faith matters most. Because faith doesn't mean you ignore reality. Faith means you refuse to let reality define your destiny. You can look at your bank account and say, this number doesn't define me. You can look at your past failures and say, company, they do not predict my future. You can look at your current pain and say, this is not permanent. That's faith. It's not denial, it's defiance. Company, it's the refusal to let your circumstances tell you who you are and what's possible for you. And I'll never forget, there was a woman I met years ago who had been through more pain than most of us can imagine. She'd lost her husband, she was raising 2 kids on her own, and she had no idea how she was going to make it. Company. She told me there were nights she sat on the kitchen floor crying, wondering how she would put food on the table. But she said something that stuck with me forever. Even when I couldn't see the way, I kept telling myself there is a way. I didn't know how, but I believed I would find it. And you know what? She did. She built a business, company, she raised her kids, she created a life of meaning, all because she refused to let go of faith in the darkest season of her life. Faith is not a guarantee of an easy life, company. Faith doesn't mean you won't face storms. It means you'll face them differently. It means you'll walk into the storm with courage because you know it won't last forever. It's company. It means you'll endure the fire because you know it's forging you. It means you'll keep walking through the valley because you know there's a mountain on the other side, company. And the most amazing part, the moment you choose faith, you start to attract possibilities you couldn't see before. You start to notice doors that were always there, but you were too blinded by fear to recognize them. You start to meet people, discover opportunities, and unlock ideas that only become visible once you've decided to keep believing. Company, faith literally changes your reality because it changes the way you show up in the world. So, if you're in that place right now, if you're tired, if you're worn out, company, if you're on the edge of giving up, I want you to remember this faith is the bridge between where you are and where you want to go. You don't need to see the whole path. Company, you don't need to know exactly how it's all going to work out. You just need to take the next step, and then the next, and then the next. Because faith is not about having the whole plan. Faith is about having the courage to keep moving without one. Do you know what life rewards more than talent, more than intelligence, more than luck? Persistence, company. The ability to keep going when everyone else has stopped. The ability to keep walking when your legs feel like they can't take another step, company. The ability to keep believing when every voice around you says you're done. And let me tell you something, persistence is the great equalizer. You might not be the smartest in the room, company. You might not have the best resources. You might not have been given the head start that others had. But if you have persistence, if you refuse to stop, company, if you make the decision that you will outlast every challenge in front of you, then you will win. Because life cannot deny someone who refuses to quit. The problem is, company, most people don't understand what persistence really is. They think persistence means trying once, twice, maybe 3 times, and if it doesn't work, company, they throw their hands in the air and say, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. That's not persistence, that's convenience. Persistence is not about doing what's easy. Company, persistence is about doing what's necessary for as long as it takes, no matter how many times you fall, no matter how long the road feels, no matter how hopeless it seems. You think about Thomas Edison. He failed over 10,000 times before he finally created the light bulb. 10,000 times. Imagine if he had stopped at 9,999, we'd still be living in the dark. People laughed at him, mocked him, told him he was wasting his life, but he kept going. And when someone asked him, how did you keep going after failing so many times? He said, I didn't fail. I found 10,000 ways that didn't work. That's persistence. It's seeing failure not as the end, but as feedback. Company, look at Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison. 27 years of his life were stolen from him. Most people would have given up on their dream, given up on their cause. He accepted their fate, but not Mandela. He persisted, and when he finally walked out of that cell, he didn't walk out bitter. Company, he didn't walk out broken. He walked out ready to lead a nation. That's the power of persistence. And I'll tell you something, life will test you. It will test your commitment. It will test your endurance. It will test your patience. The dream you want, the goal you have, the life you're chasing, it will not come easy. It will come with obstacles, setbacks, company, and rejections. And every time you hit one of those walls, life is asking you one question: how bad do you really want it? Because if you only want it when it's easy, company, you'll never get it. But if you want it badly enough to persist through the storms, then you've already won. Persistence is not glamorous. Persistence is not sexy. This company, persistence is waking up when you don't want to. It's putting in the work when no one is watching. It's making the call, writing the proposal, lifting the weight, practicing the skill, even when you don't feel like it. Persistence is consistency in the face of resistance. And here's the thing, persistence compounds. Every step you take, every attempt you make, company, every day you refuse to quit, it all adds up. Most people underestimate the power of small, consistent action. They want the big breakthrough right away, and when it doesn't come, company, they quit. But breakthroughs aren't sudden. They're built on a foundation of persistence. They're the result of showing up again and again, until one day the wall finally cracks, the door finally opens, and the opportunity finally arrives. I want you to picture this. Imagine you're digging for water. You've been digging hole after hole, company, and every time you get a few feet in, you stop because you don't see water yet. So you move to another spot, you dig again, still nothing. And after doing this 10, 20, 30 times, company, you say it's hopeless, but the truth is you might have been one more swing away from hitting the well. And that's exactly what happens in life. People quit just before the breakthrough. They walked away when they were inches away from everything they wanted. Persistence means you don't stop digging. Company, it means you trust that if you keep going, if you keep showing up, eventually you will strike water, and when you do, company, it won't just quench your thirst, it will flood your life with abundance. But here's the catch. Persistence requires vision. You have to be able to see beyond your current struggle. Company, you have to hold a picture in your mind of the life you want, the person you want to become, the impact you want to make. Because when the pain gets heavy, company, when the results aren't showing up, vision is what fuels persistence. Without vision, you'll give up. With vision, you'll keep going no matter what, company. And I want you to think about this. What if the only difference between you and the person you admire most is that they didn't quit, company? What if the only reason they succeeded and you haven't yet is because they were willing to go through one more no, one more failure, one more sleepless night, company? What if your breakthrough is not a matter of talent, not a matter of luck, but a matter of persistence? I've seen this again and again. People who looked ordinary, company, people who weren't the smartest, weren't the fastest, weren't the most gifted, but they had one thing: they refused to quit. And because they refused to quit, company, they eventually became extraordinary. That's the secret no one tells you. Greatness is not about never falling. Greatness is about getting back up every single time you fall. Company, it's about standing back up when your knees are bloody, when your heart is broken, when your spirit feels crushed. Because persistence says, I will rise again. And let's be honest, persistence isn't just about external results, it's about who you become in the process. When you persist, you build resilience. Company, you build grit, you build character, you become someone who cannot be broken, someone who cannot be stopped. And that transformation is more valuable than any trophy, any paycheck, company, any applause. Because once you've built persistence, you can take on anything. So the question I want you to ask yourself is this: where in your life have you been quitting too soon? Company, where have you been giving up at the first sign of difficulty? Where have you let temporary setbacks convince you that your dream isn't possible? Because I promise you, company, if you're willing to persist, if you're willing to keep showing up, keep fighting, keep believing, then the breakthrough you've been waiting for is not a matter of if, company, it's only a matter of when. So here we are, we've walked through the storms, we've looked fear in the eyes, we've battled failure, company, and we've discovered the unshakable power of persistence. And now I want you to hear me, not just with your ears, but with your soul. Never give up. Never, company. Because this isn't just some motivational phrase, this is the truth of life. The people who succeed are not the ones who had it easy, they are the ones who refused to stop. The ones who fell and got back up, the ones who cried but kept moving, the ones who were told they couldn't and chose to prove the world wrong. And I promise you this, you have that same power inside of you right now. You are stronger than your fear. You are greater than your failures. You are more powerful than your pain, company. But it's not about me telling you. You have to decide. You have to make a choice today that says, no matter what comes my way, I will not quit. Because when you make that decision, everything changes. Doors open. Strength rises. Hope grows. And one day you'll look back on this moment, the moment you could have given up but didn't, company, and you'll realize it was this decision that changed your life forever. So I want you to take this with you. You are not done. Your story is not over, company. The best chapters have not even been written yet. Keep going, keep believing, keep fighting, and above all, never ever give up.